The Prime Minister described his meeting with Trump as constructive and the beginning of a new relationship between the U.S. and Canada. So is a reset possible between our two countries following the launch of this trade war? Let's bring in Erin O'Toole to talk about that a little bit more. He's a former leader of the Conservative Party of Canada and a distinguished fellow at the Hudson Institute, which is a think tank. Mr. O'Toole, thank you so much for joining us today.
Great to be with you.
Okay, so this high-stakes meeting, the first of what appears to be many in the future, is in the rearview mirror. What should Canada be focused on as it moves forward?
Well, I think the tone, as Janice said in the previous report, was really solid. It was an improvement. There was no white smoke, but the relationship was in smoking ruins beforehand. So it seems like we have a chance to reset the Canada-US dialogue with President Trump, because we've got the next 3.5 years of having to try and forge deals on everything from tariffs to mutual defense and security in North America. So I think now that the tone has been reset somewhat, we can then start working on the really important trade issues. I think it was good Prime Minister Carney reminded the president that we're the largest customer, the largest client of the United States. We're the only country that does homeland security for the United States. There's Canadians serving at NORAD in Colorado Springs. We're the only country that has an integrated electricity grid with the United States in a very deep and meaningful way. So if we can get back to that, we can start talking about the need to get tariffs down, the need to partner on energy. So I think this was a first good step in a journey. I love Churchill, so the Churchill quote was very appropriate.
You know, when we're talking about the shifts in tone, certainly that's important. But we did hear a very direct question to the U.S. president saying, OK, is there anything that can happen here or be said here that would change your mind on tariffs? And it was a very straightforward no, that's not going to happen. So what sorts of other pieces of leverage might Canadians be able to use now that it appears there's a little bit more of a shift in tone, maybe less animosity, so to speak, in the way that the two leaders are speaking? What other leverage can Canada use at this stage to turn the ship around when it comes to tariffs?
Well, the leverage is just how deeply our economies are integrated. And I think if we can present that to President Trump as solutions to problems he's already going to start experiencing, that will help him. He's going to see a lot of store shelves starting to get empty in the next few months. You're going to see higher prices and inflation. So the trade imbalance that he feels Canada has is largely due to energy and resources like potash from Western Canada. So reminding him that energy security, food security for his citizens, getting prices down for his citizens can be done with Canada as a partner, and tariffing your closest partner is the wrong way. He also wants to rebuild shipbuilding in the United States and relaunch what you could call the arsenal of democracy, rebuild that military capacity in the United States. Well, you need Canadian aluminum for that. You need our defense and even our auto industries, which have been integrated really since World War II. So I think he looks at trade as a zero-sum game, that if somebody has a surplus, they're winning. Actually, the U.S. is winning because our surplus comes from energy that they buy from us at a discount. So how we re-educate the president on his views on trade will be the next challenge for Prime Minister Carney. But energy is the linchpin here, and then the integrated sort of defense and manufacturing sector is the next step.
Now, ahead of the Trump-Carney meeting, Erin, yesterday to talk about U.S.-Canada relations and tariffs, we heard the Conservative Party leader, Pierre Poilievre, and interim leader, Andrew Scheer, both wish Carney well, somewhat signaling a bit of a more cooperative tone. And this was the same day the Conservative caucus met and MPs voted to adopt the Reform Act, and we know that that can launch a leadership review. Might that sort of conciliatory tone that we heard on the topic of U.S.-Canada relations be an attempt by Poilievre to convince MPs that he should stick around? Is it a display of a shift?
Well, I think the two things are separate. I do think Conservatives are patriotic Canadians. They want our country to succeed. They want this situation with the U.S. to be brought down from a boil to a simmer. You know, I've talked to many of them. They hate seeing the national anthem's booed, and this friction between which is normally our closest ally and neighbor. The secondary issue is Mr. Poilievre getting a seat. There's already been Damien Couric step down in the Crowfoot riding in Alberta. He's got a path. So there'll be a little bump that he's not in the House right away. But he has support of caucus and of the membership of the party, much stronger support than I had, for example. So I think that the Reform Act vote is smart because we are sort of a grassroots political movement. I supported the Reform Act that later on I lost the vote on, but that means the leader has to be willing to put to caucus their direction. Mr. Poilievre has some lessons to take from the election. He's already said that. But I do think the support for Canada and as much of a Team Canada effort, I was very proud to see my former colleagues wishing the Prime Minister well. All Canadians should wish Prime Minister Carney well as we try and eliminate some of these profoundly unfair and potentially very damaging tariffs.
Erin, I want to thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your thoughts on, of course, this very important topic in this country.
Thank you, Arthi.
Erin O'Toole is a former leader of the Conservative Party of Canada and a distinguished fellow at the Hudson Institute.